mutual respect and fairness and representation and influence for both genders, I think is not only the right thing to do, I think it's the moral responsibility of leaders to ensure that it happens. And I believe that creating a culture of this kind starts with a leader. And then through the leader cascades to the leadership team and then becomes a culture where everybody feel that they have a voice and where they belong, of which gender is one dimension. And I have, a very deep conviction and belief that differences make us stronger. And by the way, it is now actually proven with data that increase in diversity creates higher enterprise value. And the reason is because increase in diversity drives greater debate and greater disagreement, greater productive conflict, and therefore better decisions, and therefore, higher enterprise value. So my mindset is always that I want to create and lead a company where everybody feels that they belong, which is diverse, which is inclusive, compassionate, respectful, empathetic, and inclusive of all kinds of diversity, starting with gender, but also ethnicity, also sexual orientation. In fact, down to differences of thought. It has to be celebrated, that differences are actually good and they need to be celebrated. So you need a leader to come in with that mindset of this is important and this is the culture that we wish to create, not only because it's the right thing to do, but you will also see greater success by pursuing this, because more enterprise value means more growth, means more opportunities, and means better lives. So it's a right thing to do on many dimensions. So hopefully you role model that in how you speak about it, but how you conduct yourself and how you walk the talk every single day, in every single meeting, in every single conversation, in every single town hall that you speak, that you're aware that you have to message the right way, that there is inclusion, that you're driving and that you believe passionately in. I think thereafter, once you have started leaders who role model it, I think you need to then integrate that in all your people processes, that you define that you declare the intent of inclusion, and then you define some goals and metrics and say, I want at least 50% gender diversity, 50% ethnic diversity. I want a fair environment where there's equal pay for men or for women doing the same job. And not only do I want representation, fairness, but I also want influence, meaning I want more women in leadership positions. Because sometimes it's very easy to get representation metrics lower down into the organization. But I think the real difference can be driven only when you have leaders who happen to be women. And finally, I think one needs to almost shock the system with the seriousness of the intent that one has on any one of these dimensions. I've always believed that. So I'll share with you one example. So I was in India running Yum brands, all three brands, KFC, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and we were growing very rapidly. And I always felt that it was very unfair that women were not allowed to work or didn't have equal rights, or it was very difficult for them to even work beyond 6 o'clock. It was, and therefore, because they could not work, it impacted their self-confidence and the respect that they got in their homes. The parents who were also not well off would then basically discount every time a baby was born, because she was not able to really be a breadwinner. And therefore, it was a kind of a virtuous, vicious cycle. So it's very important to break through that glass ceiling of just employment for girls. So one way in which we broke through with the seriousness of our intent was that we announced that we're going to make the first KFC in the world, and certainly in India, which will be run only by women. And which was like, it sounds very simple, but it was a very dramatic move at that time. This was, at least 15 odd years back, maybe even more. And we picked up a store in Guwahati in the eastern part of India, where it was very hard to hire women, very hard to train them, very hard to have them stay on beyond 6 o'clock, and very hard to get the permission to have only an all-woman store. And because it was very hard, it was, it is very often the right thing to do. I think the right things to do are mostly very hard. So we persisted, we did it, and then it was celebrated. And people saw that, well, yes, this is actually right. And it opened up a debate of why can't women be equal participants in the workforce? And that also signaled to the company that, listen, we are serious about this intent. We want women to have a seat at the table, so to speak. So those are some thoughts on how one can actually seed this on the culture, people, processes, role model it, and also have some examples that one can point to.